Today, our Mrs. Reynolds. Megan, this episode really disturbed me for about the first half. Then it very much confused me. So maybe you can either enlighten me or take me gently by the hand and walk me through these issues and my confusion, and we can reach synthesis at the end. What do you say?
That sounds absolutely fantastic. I swear by my pretty floral bonnet, we can do it. If we do it together.
So, once again, the episode opens with just some fantastic action. And it's action wrapped around a wonderfully acted, if I can say the word, cross-dressing scene. If that's still something you can say.
They weren't in Florida. Let's...
May have been banned in Florida. And some fairly humorous commentary around said cross-dressing scene. But a nice little gun battle to start the episode. And then,
I love that trope where they've got people hidden in the back of a wagon. And at the appropriate moment they jump out. It's always good.
It was. So they kill all the bad guys, and then they go back to the small village or town that they have protected.
They kill most of the bad guys, importantly.
Excuse me, most of the bad guys. And they go back to celebrate, and the boys party hardy, a little too hardy, as we find out, and we see some party scenes. And then we're back to the Serenity. Mm-hmm. And you want to pick it up from there.
Well, during the partying, many things had occurred. Jane had his heart touched and was given a rain stick, which he promised to treasure for the rest of his days. And Mel danced with a lovely and charming young woman. It seemed like they had a great time. And what do they find when they're packing up to leave on Serenity but a stowaway in, below decks? And the stowaway quickly reveals that she is the wife of one Malcolm Reynolds, to the absolute delight and hilarity of everyone on board except said Malcolm Reynolds. What did you think of kind of her reveal scene when everyone was learning about the fact that she was his wife? She was on board. They're in space now.
Well, I guess I was, first of all, I never partied too much to the point where I got married. So I can't really draw upon any personal experience. I guess I was a little confused, or actually probably bemused by Zoe's just guffawedness over this. Anara was sort of one eyebrow raised. And she is clearly not happy, and she is not bemused or befuddled. But Zoe is like, oh, looky here, our Mal got hitched. Isn't that special? And the woman, Saffron, we find out her name, has apparently grown up in this town that they saved. And she is a completely subservient female. She cooks for him. She cleans for him. She offers to wash his feet. We haven't even gotten to the bedroom scene yet, but we will. And I just found that incredibly disturbing. And part of that is much of the U.S. social and political commentary seems to be a streak of people who want to return to that. The Southern Baptists just defrocked all women pastors at their convention, which I thought was certainly uncalled for,
sign.
even for Southern Baptists. And so I found all of that very troubling. Recognizing the show was 20 years ago. And then I think it was at some point we see the Serenity fly past an asteroid with a camera on it. And the camera is taking pictures of ships that fly by, and the pictures are transmitted to some scavengers who catch ships and then scrape them and break them apart and sell them while killing the crew, as we later find out. After we have that scene, we have the bedroom scene. And in the bedroom scene, Saffron is waiting for Mal, although he has told her several times they're not sleeping together. Well, she makes it clear she wants her wedding night with everything that entails. And she cites biblical verse for that. And she's a very attractive woman. And she is in her birthday suit. At least the camera angle we get, which is fortunately just her back.
It was very much implied she was in her birthday suit.
Yes.
Strongly hinted.
Heavily hinted. And at some point, she seduces Mal enough to kiss him. And she somehow has some knockout gel on her lips that...
moment.
Why don't you walk through what you were sensing from all of that scene?
Well, the very for like when I watched it for the first time, I was absolutely taken in, just the way everyone else was, and I thought it was just great how Mal had gotten himself into this situation by not paying enough attention to what was going on, by being too hasty, perhaps. I thought Zoe was getting such a kick out of it because I imagine she has been at the pointy end of a lot of barbs about being married during that whole courtship process she would have had with Rosh. I bet she's been waiting years for the chance to dish some of it back out. And I think I kind of saw that satisfaction in her for finding that so funny. And then kind of the points you were saying that were so kind of distressing, I found kind of contextually appropriate. Just, for the universe that the show is building. I mean, in a lot of human history, brides have typically been trade goods. And there's nothing, really kind of historically shocking about that. And I think, in the instance of if that is kind of what you're raised to expect your life outcome to be, getting a good one is a pretty great thing that you may not be counting on. And if it happens, that's pretty great. And, the contrast between her and the rest of the crew, kind of by extension, from this really alien world with very different traditions than what most of the crew had grown up with. The contrast was great, and she just made herself really, really appealing. It would be, I think, very hard for someone to resist someone who seemed that open-handed with their feelings and their situation and their wardrobe. But, I think it would be hard to resist, even for someone who does have very much the beliefs that, people should be free and make their own choices and not be sold, like Mal. But if someone is that clear and that articulate, as he later says, I don't blame him. But then the reveal, when she stops being a meek, submissive wife who wants to do her duty with this great hand she felt she'd been dealt, and she absolutely starts wreaking havoc. I loved it.
Well, that havoc starts with, after she kisses Mal and he passes out, she goes to the bridge. And she goes after Wash.
Who cannot be got.
And, well, not all the way, but he's thinking about it, believe me. And
I think that's forgivable. I think she put him in a position where it'd be very hard not to, but he withstood, and he was good. He was kicked in the head, not kissed.
And he kicked it with a drop kick, so knocks him out. She sabotages the bridge, nav control, sensors, and then with a magic stick, she welds the doors together. Mm-hmm. And then she goes down to see Inara.
Another great moment. What was your take on it?
Well, she clearly is trying to seduce Inara, and it's not clear, because I had to watch it again, how far she succeeds. There is no physical contact, but she says, "I'm the widow of Mal Reynolds." And that very much confused me at that point, because I thought Mal had been knocked out not killed. And it was, I think, immediately after she said that, the ship's alarm went off. And we don't know why it went off, if it was a proximity alert or some other automatic alarm. But Inara immediately assesses the situation and recognizes what's happened. And there is a very short struggle, and then Saffron steals the second shuttle, not Inara's. And Inara goes to Mal's quarters, and much like us frogs, we get kissed by a princess. And because she has kissed him on the lips, she passes out. And then I guess Zoe goes to the bridge, and they break. Jane cuts the doors open, and they figure out what's happened.
And Inara was able to call for help before succumbing to.
And the preacher identifies. They find the untoward ship, the scrapers, on radar, and the preacher identifies their signature as what he calls a net, but it's some sort of capture mechanism. Once again, why does he know that and no one else? And then in a really cool way, they avoid the net by shooting, and I forgot the gun's name. We didn't even talk about that scene.
Got to talk about that scene.
Well, let's go back and talk about that scene.
Yeah, there's a couple we got to jump into. I want to talk more about the kind of engagement between Inara and Saffron as well, because I thought that was a fantastically interesting moment.
So early on in the episode, Jane brings this fabulous automatic rifle, and it's not clear what he's going to do with it because he cocks it.
He looks so serious and
he looks so
mad.
serious, but he wants to trade it to Mal for Saffron, and this is part of why Mal, I think, did so well in this episode, because he's like, no, you can't trade for a human, even if it's a great gun.
It doesn't. I love the way he described the gun, just step by step, and it's just like, this is my very favorite gun. And I think it was interesting. I think what it indicated to me, though, was that Jane grew up on a planet a lot more like Saffron's, the one they had been on, than the others did. And that was, to him, not a repellent idea. He hadn't been raised with the idea that that was in any way wrong.
Yep,
And
I agree.
Yeah, obviously it is. But, I mean, if you're brought up to believe something your whole life, yeah, it takes time to get rid of that conditioning and those underlying ideas. And, I mean, all he got off that planet was a stick. So he probably felt a little hard done by.
as he noted. But I just was intrigued by the way they used that gun, because they suited up, and what I thought they were going to do was go on a spacewalk and shoot out the net from in space. And even then I thought, wait a minute, you can't fire a gun in space because you've got to have oxygen to ignite the gunpowder to fire the shell or casing. Well, they don't go on a spacewalk. They pressurize and open a space hatch, but they put the gun inside of a pressurized suit.
So clever.
And I thought that was so cool. Okay, so they shoot the net out, and then they shot out some window or observation port near the pilot of the ship scraper, which depressurizes and blows them out and kills them. That struck me as inconsistent with what I had seen from them previously. That seemed to me to be almost revenge. And I wondered why they did that. And the way it was framed in the show was no discussion, no, let's take them out, no focus on Jane's face, I'm going to get these bastards. Just two shots to a window, the glass cracks, and you see them blow out the side. So that one's sort of describing, because I hadn't really seen anyone do that. Jane has talked in prior episodes about doing some pretty untoward things, but so that part bothered me.
I think that who these people were in the observation deck kind of comes into play for a bit, because they were serial murderers, right? This was a whole thing they had set up to have just ship after ship, kill the entire crew, steal everything they had. taking them out permanently was a good for the entire quadrant. and you know,
Fair
because
enough.
I've seen more of the episodes, but it seems like that seems kind of, to me at least, logically consistent with how they behave in regards to making the universe a better and safer place from the bad people.
So we're going to go back to Saffron and Inara, but I want to set it up with the question that I have that maybe you can lead me through. I understood what Saffron was doing. I understood her role. But what I couldn't figure out was it didn't seem to me that these scrapers had planned to do this to the Serenity. I thought it was going to be a crime of opportunity, and that opportunity was the ship passed their camera and they decided, oh, let's go after that ship. But having Saffron there, one, indicated some serious planning by the ship scrapers, but having Saffron on the planet in the position where she could claim she was the wife after the gun battle and the party hardy, that seemed to me to be an awful long con and months of planning to get to that point. So can you get me to where I need to be on that?
Unless the whole town is in on it. Because I think, I looked back a couple of times and I'm not 100% sure, but I think one of the bandits from the beginning that got away was one of the scrapers. And I think the entire town was in on it. I think it's a game they run again and again. They call a passing ship for security help. You got to help these bandits that have been terrorizing our town. Then they get them really drunk, and then they marry one of them to Saffron, and then they get caught by the scrapers, and the whole thing happens again and again. I think they were all in on it.
And then there's one other plot point that came about because of the prior episode about River's ability to read minds, or ESP. Where was River, and why didn't she sense all is not right?
That's a good question. This was not a River-centric. I didn't even notice, really, that she wasn't really in this
The reason
episode.
you didn't notice was because she wasn't.
Yeah.
She did not have one line. She did not have one scene. Maybe she was having a bad couple of days.
Yeah, I guess story-wise, she must have been having a couple of days. I wonder if the actress couldn't be available for filming that day.
I think it's because if she had been on scene, given what we learned in the prior episode, she would have said,
Yeah, there would have been no way to retcon that. They had to get rid of her. No, that's a good observation. I completely did not notice that.
So it's
well.
Okay. So Inara and Saffron, how did Inara figure it out?
So I thought this was so interesting because just the not quite immediate, because obviously when Saffron first came aboard, Inara was just like, Mal's got a wife, not into this. And he didn't notice how unhappy she was about that, I will point out. But when, Saffron's escaping and she runs into Inara not expecting to see her, and she immediately turns on the submissive, sexy charm. And Inara immediately starts playing along. And she's like, well, absolutely, I'm into this. Let's go to my shuttle. And that kind of then reveal of, oh, you're good. You're amazing. Who are you? I thought was just really fascinating because they did come from the same roots and ended up going in really different directions. And her statement later when she's explaining, that no, this woman Saffron has had training, like companion training, like from the academy, and that you can't play a player. I thought it was really interesting. And another kind of little hint at the kind of extent to which companions have training and the ability to psychologically understand and or manipulate the people that they work with or encounter. And it was interesting to see kind of, Inara plying her trade as a respectable businesswoman and then Saffron using it for crime. It was really interesting. But yeah, I liked how Inara clocked onto it and then absolutely was completely unwilling to admit that she had kissed Mal and would rather him believe that Saffron took her in too, even though she doesn't think you can play a player.
Well, before we get to that, okay, the whole town being in on it. There's a movie from my youth where that happened, so I'm in.
Yeah, that's why. We can't pay you, so we'll give you this wife. So sorry.
But before we get to that last scene with Mal and Saffron, I want to talk about Mal finding Saffron and that confrontation scene, because I almost thought that was almost gratuitous. Because if it had been like James T. Kirk or the Starship Enterprise, they would have put out a warning, stay away from this planet, don't companion up with this gal, whatever it is. But he confronts her and he threatens to shoot her, but I knew he wasn't going to shoot her. He's not a cold-blooded killer. And then he gratuitously knocks her out with a punch to the face.
I mean, given that her skin was poison,
yeah.
I'll allow it.
So I guess I just thought that that whole scene was gratuitous. Did you see a reason for that scene?
Not so much. I think they were maybe just trying to let Mal get a little bit of his face back. And I mean, obviously they had to retrieve their shuttle. They needed their second shuttle. But the kind of conversation between them didn't do a whole lot. It did definitely establish, though, that Saffron's still a character in play in the universe. She's still out there, even if her co-conspirators have been taken off the board. And I think it was also interesting to get to see a little more of Saffron kind of in her more natural state. We got more than half the episode of her in character, and now we kind of see a little bit more of the real person on the TV show.
But we have to get to the final scene between Mal and Inara. Mm-hmm. And you set it up, but I'm going to repeat it because I think it bears repeating, which was he confronts Inara and basically says, well, gosh, you passed out too. We're knocked out. You must have kissed her too. And turns around and walks off. Now, we know that was not what happened. But is it pride? Is it hubris? Is it fear? What is it that prevents her from telling him the truth?
I mean, she was about to. She was just about to before he started getting all, I got you, I see through your tricks. I think kind of openly expressing honest interest in Mal would be it would be a foolhardy act of emotional vulnerability. I don't think she has any evidence to support that despite this chemistry that's plainly there, that he would be in any way good about it, that he would be cool about it. He's demonstrated again and again and again he's going to be that jerk. I think she can't risk it. I think they've both got enough in their past that, they can't be that honest with each other, even if the feelings are there. At least not yet.
Okay. Well, I feel better about this episode. Really a lot to unpack, though.
Yeah.
But, with making the whole village or planet or whatever tribe or group that was a part of this, okay, that makes sense to me. And that's actually, from movies I've seen. So, yeah, that was very cool. Yeah. So I hope our listeners will join us again. And I'm Tom Fox.
I'm Megan Doherty. See you next time.
This is Tom Fox again. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Because That's What Heroes Do. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever great podcasts are listened to. Because That's What Heroes Do is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.